The first morning sun slipped through the thick canopy, painting the dew on the fern leaves with a golden light. This was the start of another day in the Stone Age, an era where every dawn was a promise of a new challenge, and every dusk was proof of survival. Kyra rose silently. The hunger gnawing at his stomach was a reminder of his duty. Today, he had to succeed, not just for himself, but for Lyra, and for their unborn child. He picked up his single most prized weapon, a spear, a straight, strong wooden shaft with an obsidian stone tip. He had honed himself until it was as sharp as a shard of ice. A simple weapon, yet it was an extension of his resolve and his arm. While Kyra slipped into the green wilderness, becoming a shadow among the giant trees, Lyra began her work around the cave. Her movements were slower, more careful, yet every action was purposeful. With a digging stick, she searched for sweet tubers hidden beneath the ground. Her skillful hands picked wild berries from thorny bushes, separating the ripe from the unripe. Deep within the jungle, Kyra's senses were as sharp as a wild animal's. He read the tracks on the moist ground, catching the distinct scent of a strong male wild boar. He was alone. There was no companion to help him, no shout to distract the prey. There was only him, his spear, and the cunning intelligence inherited from his ancestors. And there, in a clearing, he saw it. A massive wild boar, its curved tusks stained with dirt. The animal was sniffing at the roots of a tree, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Kyra held his breath. One small mistake, one snapped twig, and his chance would be gone. Blood soaked the ground. The wild boar collapsed just a few paces from Kyra's feet. Kyra was breathing heavily, his body shaking with adrenaline. He had succeeded. The struggle, however, was not over. With the remainder of his strength, he tied the animal's legs with strong vines and began dragging the heavy load on the long journey back home. From a distance, Lyra saw her husband's figure emerge from behind the trees, limping yet upright, dragging his gift from the forest. A relieved and proud smile spread across her face. The firewood was ready. The fruits and spices had been gathered. Home was waiting. As Lyra skillfully arranged the firewood, Kyra, after a brief rest, started working with a sharp stone flake, cutting the best parts of meat from their catch. They cooked together that late afternoon, heading into the evening. Kyra handed a piece of meat to Lyra, who then rubbed it with the fragrant leaves she had gathered. Together, they lit the fire. Smoke billowed into the twilight sky as they placed the meat on the hot stones they had prepared at the edge of the fire. The delicious aroma of roasted meat mixed with the fragrance of spices, filling the air around the cave. They worked in a silence filled with understanding, an ancient dance between the provider and the preparer, between husband and wife. Under the gaze of the first emerging stars, they sat side by side, sharing the meal that was the fruit of both their hard work. That night, the fire they lit was not just to warm two souls, but three. It was a promise for the future, fought for with a stone spear and love at the dawn of human civilization. The wild boar meat had given them strength, but in this ancient world, satisfaction was a fatal enemy. Survival demanded a gaze always fixed on tomorrow. Under the dim light of the cave, Kyra did not rest. She was perfecting his new weapon. No longer a stone-tipped wooden shaft, but a lighter, deadlier spear made from the thigh bone of a giant deer he had once conquered. He honed it to a fine point, a pale masterpiece that promised speed and sharpness. With the new weapon in his grip, Kyra stepped back into the forest. His goal today was not a major hunt, but reconnaissance, seeking out fresh tracks for the coming days. However, the forest felt different. An eerie silence shrouded everything. Birds stopped chirping. Suddenly, from behind the thicket, a pair of yellow eyes stared at him. Then another pair, and another. A pack of sleek and ferocious ancient wolves, dire wolves, had surrounded him. They did not growl, only stared with cold, predatory intelligence. Instantly, the roles were reversed. The hunter had become the hunted. Kyra tightened his grip on the bone spear. He knew fighting them all was suicide. His back pressed against a large rock face. He moved slowly, his eyes keenly scanning every movement. The next day, with his body still weary, Kyra decided to seek out a different kind of resource. Not meat, but something rare and valuable. A source of pure energy. As he walked along the edge of the forest, a familiar buzzing sound drew his attention. He followed the sound, and his eyes lit up. Hanging from a towering giant tree branch was a large golden beehive. His brain immediately went to work. He could not simply climb up. Using a technique passed down from his ancestors, Kyra began to prepare. He gathered dry moss, wrapped it with damp leaves, and tied it to a long stick. By rubbing two pieces of wood together, he managed to create a spark and lit the end of his stick, creating a thick, smoky torch. Carefully, he climbed the tree, the smoky torch in his hand. He directed the thick smoke toward the hive's opening, causing the thousands of bees inside to panic and become confused. Most of the swarm flew away, and Kyra saw his chance. His hand reached into the warm, sticky comb, pulling out a chunk of honey-filled honeycomb. He couldn't resist. High up in the tree, he immediately savored the results. The burst of sweetness in his mouth was an unbelievable luxury, a gift from the forest gods. But he stayed too long. The smoke from his torch was thinning. The furious guard bees returned fiercely. In an instant, his body was covered in tiny stings that felt like 1,000 fiery needles. Panicked, Kyra lost his grip, and the only way out was down. Without thinking, he jumped. He landed in the rushing river beneath the tree. The cold water soothed the burning sensation of the bee stings, but the danger was not over. As he surfaced to take a breath, something large and rough snatched at his leg. In the murky water, he saw the terrifying silhouette of an ancient crocodile closing in on him. Fortunately, the strong river current was on his side. With the last of his strength, he kicked the crocodile's snout and allowed the current to sweep him away. He swam with all his might toward the bank, crawling onto dry land, shivering, drenched, and covered in stings. Once the threat from the great predator had passed, Kyra wasted no time. He returned to his trail, and before long, his eyes lit up at the sight of the reward for his persistence. On the way home, as the sun began to dip to the west and the forest was cloaked in long shadows, the ground trembled softly. A massive and powerful wild boar suddenly crossed his path. The animal, full of vigor, was ready to charge. Kyra's primal instinct took over. With a move inherited from his ancestors, he raised his sharp stone spear. There was no hesitation, only cold focus. The spear shot out, piercing the thick hide and dropping the prey, which was significantly larger than him. With his muscles straining, Kyra hoisted the abundant catch onto his shoulder. The load was heavy, but his spirit felt much lighter. He knew that tonight, the cave they called home would be filled with the much-anticipated aroma. This was more than just food. It was a victory over the wild, a guarantee for tomorrow. Upon arriving at his rock shelter, Kyra did not delay. He lit the fire. The tiny spark grew into flames that embraced the dry wood. Soon, he began roasting the wild boar meat over the embers. The sound of fat sizzling and the thick smoke billowing filled the cave, bringing warmth and a sense of safety. Kyra ate peacefully, savoring every bite. His success today gave him more than just satiation. It gave him peace. Outside the cave, the night was late, cold and full of mystery. But inside, he was safe and content. With a full stomach and the embers beginning to fade, Kyra lay down. He slept soundly, protected by the rock walls and the promise of dawn. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new hunts. But for tonight, the ancient human rested, ready to once again embrace the harshness of life.